Check it out.
Man. All right, SEC Insider Hit today brought to you by Ace Bolt and Screw, powered by DeWalt Tools, 4 locations. Downtown Jackson, new one in Gluckstadt, Madison County, Tupelo in Atlanta. Ace Bolt and Screw, powered by DeWalt Tools. Show is also presented by Welcome Home Beef. Great steaks there at Welcome Home Beef. Go to welcomehomebeef.com. Beautiful place in Starkville, Mississippi, where you can get the best steaks. Throw them on the grill. Enjoy game day, college or NFL. We're going to go to the, what am I going to, Blake? Miller Lite guest line, and we'll welcome in Steve Robertson, genespage.com, the Boneyard Podcast. His new book, Alpha Dogs, you can find it at the Y'all Lifestyle Shop in the Township. Great Christmas gift or client gift. Steve, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a little dreary out here, which kind of is indicative of our mood in Starkville these days. But, yeah, it's okay. Any day on this side of the grass is a good one.
That's right. Hey, are you going to Tuscaloosa?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Man, that's tip of the hat to you going to T-Town.
Well, the job never changes. Win, lose, home or away.
Sure.
We got a job to do. So.
All right. So the attrition continues. I just want to get I don't think it's a surprise to you, but for our listeners, what would you say for MSU football?
Well, I think a lot of this would have been cleared up post-spring had you had spring practice. And it's interesting, because so many of the guys that are leaving. I think Nick Pendley was a bit of a surprise, but yeah, I think everybody figured, once. Leach got here, the guys like Jalen Maiden and Garrett Schrader were going to have to work really hard to find a spot, at quarterback. And, Maiden is a guy that was recruited by Dan Mullen. And even then he was kind of an interesting take because he's not necessarily a plus runner. And, Mullen's offense is kind of predicated on the quarterback run. But Jalen Maiden can play. Jalen Maiden is a guy that I think will transfer and find a place where he can get on the field and hopefully do a good job with all that. But yeah, it's a part of transition. It's just one of those things that ordinarily you would have handled this in spring, but you're having to deal with it now.
And you expect some more of that over the next 6 to 8 weeks, right?
Oh, I don't think there's any question. State can sign up to 26 guys in this class. They've got one initial counter they can count in December for 2020 and then sign a full 25 in 2021. And so I fully expect them to do that, even though I think they'll save a couple of spots post-spring just to kind of see what's available in the transfer portal, probably look at taking an experienced defensive end somewhere, somebody that can come in and bring some pass rush. But, yeah, this is not the end of the attrition, so Bulldog fans need to go ahead and prepare for that. Probably going to be as many as 4, if not more, guys lead the program here within the next couple months, if not longer.
Do you tie in or how do you look at it as far as it's mostly offensive guys? Moorhead coached offense. Leach coaches offense. Do you read anything into that, or what do you do with that?
Well, I think a lot of this is very much system attrition. You have guys who don't necessarily, fit the scheme. And so, it's best for everybody. And that's one of the things that I think that, maybe the casual fan misses. You have only a short time in your life to play ball, and you don't want to waste the last years of your athletic career on a sideline holding the clipboard. You want to get a chance to play. If that means you got to drop down a level or go G5, even FCS, then that's what you need to do. You got to go out there and make yourself some memories. And, before you know it, you're going to be paying bills and raising kids like everybody else. And so, it's just part of the deal. And Mike Leach has got to find the guys. He's being paid handsomely to win football games. And so he's got to go out and find the guys that he feels like best fits his system. And then you kind of move forward from there.
All right. KJ Costello or Will Rogers takes the first snap this weekend?
I think it's probably going to be KJ. And if you'd asked me a week ago, I would have said Will. But I think, based on what we know and what we see and what we're facing this Saturday, I think there is a real chance that KJ may get the start. But I think Will play. And I think it's maybe best just to give, Will the opportunity to kind of observe for a little while before you you throw them to the Crimson Tide Wolves out there, because we all know, listen, that defense is not maybe what it has been, but it's going to be filled with athletes and guys that can hurt you a little bit. And it's probably good for Will to kind of watch and get in the flow of the game. But I think down the stretch, Will Rogers is the guy. You probably need to get him some reps for the future and put him in a position where he can get some game tape and learn from that as he pushes into next year. But I fully expect both of them to play.
And I think it would just be a better play for Will Rogers to start against Vanderbilt the next weekend, Steve.
Yeah, I do too. And listen, I know fans are a little bit turnover weary, and I think we all probably feel that way. And so the thought process, many people are, you read on social media, they say, well, if they try KJ out there, it's going to be more turnovers, it's going to be this, going to be that. And that's probably true. But the reality of it is you don't want to throw a Rogers out there before he's ready and crush the guy's confidence. And I think you let him play a little bit this week. If he finds some rhythm, you stick with him. But the hope is to get him ready for down the stretch, and hopefully you can be competitive and hopefully win against Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Ole Miss.
How many more bodies do they have in the secondary, Steve?
Yeah, that depth has really been challenged. You know, Fred Peters now out for the year, Dylan Lawrence out for the year. You know, you've got some guys out there that are special teamers that are kind of running your two deep now, and so you know that's a real concern. You know, the thing is, when you look at who they're playing, once you clear Alabama, you probably don't have, you know, the same just pass-happy scheme. You know, Ole Miss a little more balanced, I guess. You know, Alabama likes to sling it around, and Mac Jones, you know, probably working his way into Heisman contention as well as he's playing. I mean, 390-something yards passing per game, and some of that will come down without Waddle. But, but listen, in this state secondary has performed pretty well, and a lot of that is because the Bulldogs have been able to generate some pass rush. And so Zach Arnett, I know, will have a scheme capable of slowing Alabama down. It's just going to be, you know, the Bulldogs have the talent to get out there and execute at a high level, and that's the real question. And I think even the truest and true Maroon would say, you know, there's a real talent differential between Alabama and Mississippi State, probably right now more so than it has been the last few years.
Steve Robertson, genespage.com, 247 Sports on the Miller Lite guest line. You're listening to the Out of Bounds show. Back to offensive line. Does Mason Miller and Mike Leach, do they still believe that Charles Cross and Dollar Bill can be really good offensive linemen in the SEC and in this system?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just a matter of, you know, you're taking your lumps this year. And Dollar Bill is going to be a good player for Mississippi State, and Charles Cross has had his moments this year. But also, too, there have been some times, you know, playing left tackle in this league is not for the faint of heart. And so you're dealing with, you know, NFL edge rushers coming off that edge, you know, play after play. And you're going to win some, they're going to win some. And you're just kind of figuring it out as you go. But I think, you know, this year is just kind of laying the foundation for their future. And, you know, part of the issue, too, is you don't have a lot of length on the interior. So those splits between the guards and tackle sometimes kind of open up. It's because you've got guys who don't have the wingspan to really execute at the level that you hope.
As far as he kept them on campus last week. Now, that may have been because of COVID. A lot of times the coaches let them go. That may not be happening anywhere, actually, around the country. But they went ahead and went full speed on Saturday, didn't they, Steve?
Yeah, they did, and I think that's probably for the best. And you're exactly right. I mean, with all the risk around COVID, I mean, it's like you kind of live in a little bit of a bubble. And so, you know, letting guys leave and go home, you're kind of potentially exposing them to infection, and then they come back and contaminate your bubble. And so I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. And, yeah, this team needs to practice. I mean, it's just, you know, with the execution issues they've had, I mean, especially on offense, you got to get those wide receivers where they know to sit down in the zone and work back to the quarterback, and you've got to get your quarterback to see the field a lot better. And so, you know, any of that time last week is time well spent.
All right, let's shift gears. The Mississippi, I don't know if you saw this yesterday. Yeah, I think you were at an Alpha Dogs book signing. But the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame announced their class for 2021, and Eric Dampier will be in the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame, I guess officially over the next few months, and was on the Final Four team, played in the NBA for 16 years, Just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on Damp getting that call, I guess, within the last few days or week that he'll be inducted into the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame and Museum.
Yeah, very, very, very worthy induction there, and it's one of those things you almost question yourself. You think, oh, he wasn't in already, but I mean, and the Hall of Fame does such a great job with that. Dampier absolutely should be in there. He was a difference maker, really kind of changed the trajectory of the program at Mississippi State when Richard Williams was here. I don't know at the time if there was a more dominant guy in our neck of the woods than Eric Dampier. And you mentioned he stays in the league for 16 years. You know, when you got length and you got size, you can play basketball for a long time, whether it be internationally or in the United States. And, Dampier, obviously, that's the first name when people think about it. When you begin to fill out your all-time Bulldog teams, you look at Eric Dampier first at that 5 spot. And, so I'm really happy for him and, happy for all those folks in Lawrence County that supported him over the years. And this is a big thing for Mississippi State and for Eric Dampier.
Have you I see where the baseball team wrapped up their big World Series, and Queso swept the fall World Series with a 3-2 victory. And, again, I know you've been on the road, but have you just heard anything from the baseball crew as far as how they've looked over the last few weeks?
Oh, absolutely. We staffed every one of those practices, or all the ones that we're allowed to. And, they're for the World Series, and Gene and Mike Nemeth were both there. But, they're going to be very good pitching. I mean, that's the main thing in this league, as you know. I mean, when you can pitch it, that keeps the score down. You've got a chance to kind of win some ball games, sometimes just based on how you pitch it. And, a lot of people believe that State have, potentially 3 first-rounders, on the weekend. And what's going to be interesting, Bo, and I've had some people share this with me, nothing official just yet, but I've heard the possibility of, your SEC week could be a 4-game schedule. But rather than just play 3 on the weekend, you could play 4 SEC games and then kind of, bump the non-conference schedule down to kind of reduce some of the travel and things of that nature and potential for cross-contamination. But, the State baseball team.
Let's do it.
Let's feel good about where we are. They could probably use one more power bat. You don't have a guy like Justin Foscue in there that, can turn a game around for you on one pitch. But that's kind of always the case. There's always something where you're waiting for a guy to emerge. But got a lot of people telling me Josh Hatcher looks like he has made a big jump, and he could be a real big power bat from the left side.
Wow. That'd be pretty cool, Steve, if they would add, in my opinion, we talked about this several months ago, the 4-game schedule. Going into the weekend. I think it's an absolute no-brainer. But at 30 games right now, I would love to see them add it to where it's 42 or so, maybe 44, and cut a lot of these. It's kind of like football. I mean, it's time to make all of our sports better because of the pandemic and disruption. Wouldn't you love to see more conference games?
Oh, I would. I mean, I've covered so many of these Tuesday night 17-3 type ball games. It's those are fun in the beginning because you get to see everybody kind of stretch your legs a little bit. But I think it really prepares you for Omaha when you're consistently facing SEC hitters and SEC pitchers. And I think if they make this jump, I think there's a really good chance you'll see somebody from the SEC, win the national championship. And of course, that's a pretty good bet just about every year with Vanderbilt, Florida, and LSU in this conference. But it's really going to tax the pitching staff, and I think that's where it kind of gives State an advantage. If they go to a 4-game slate, with all the pitching State has, I think you got to feel good that you're going to win games 3 and 4 a lot more regularly than perhaps some other teams will, just because you have the ability to pitch at such a high level.
Who would give me the rotation?
Well, the 4th spot, I think, is still up for grabs. But, you get Christian McLeod in Game 1. You get Will Bednar in Game 2, and then Eric Cerantola in 3. And I've had people tell me that Eric Cerantola might have the best right-handed breaking ball in all of college baseball. The biggest issue with him, as it always has been, is control. Can he consistently land that breaking ball for a called strike? When he can, he is very, very good. He has had a good fall. But there have been some times when he has been a little bit erratic with throwing his breaking stuff for a strike. And so that's kind of the chore between now and then for Scott Boxhall. But I think that 4th spot is still very much up for grabs. But looking at Gene's stats over the weekend, you had 5 guys consistently throw 90 plus. And that was one of the things that Foxhall kind of placed a premium on when he got here, is to find guys that could throw a 2 to 3 pitch mix, but also be able to overpower people with their fastball. And that's kind of where we're looking at now. So there's a lot of optimism now about the Bulldog baseball team.
Yeah. Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds show. Blake, do you have something, or are we moving on?
I do want to ask a question on baseball real quick. We didn't get to see this last year because they didn't even make conference schedule. But this will be, I guess, in theory, if everything holds up right, the first full season without Jake Mangum. Have you noticed in the guys that they're returning who probably wouldn't have been there, Hatcher, Allen, Rowdy, guys that normally would go in a 20-round MLB draft, have you noticed a holdover from the mentality of 2 years ago? Or what do you see from this makeup of this Bulldog baseball team? Again, I guess in the first season without Jake Mangum fully.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll tell you that they really benefit from that abbreviated draft, because you get a nucleus of very talented players that know what it takes to get to Omaha. I mean, guys like Tanner Allen and Rowdy Jordan and Josh Hatcher, I mean, those guys have been there. And you look on the pitching side of things, Spencer Price, Riley Self, those guys, they've been in the wars. And old wins in baseball. We talk about it all the time in other sports, but it's probably truer in baseball than any other sport. Experience makes all the difference in the world. I mean, you can go out and, sign a 5-star freshman running back and he can come in and be dynamic, but baseball is a game. The more experience you get, the talent really shows. And so you've got a solid nucleus there that returns unexpectedly. They're going to be bigger, stronger, more physically mature, and have a chance to really do some big things. So I agree. I think that the Jake Mangum fingerprints are still on this team, despite the fact that, he's been gone now for a couple of years. But, Rowdy Jordan playing center field and leading off and had a 5-for-5 day on Friday. I mean, that dog will hunt.
Wow. What you got,
Who's
Blake?
the new name to look for in the starting lineup?
Who's the new name, Steve?
Yeah.
Well, you got the grad transfer, and I always mispronounce this, but DeBrule is your second base guy. He's a guy that could really hit in the G5. I don't know that he's made the big jump yet in the fall, but he's a guy that'll be there at second. And Cameron James, we talked about him a lot last year in the non-conference as a guy. He's a little bit inconsistent at times defensively, but he's the guy I saw him play in person this summer, and he's probably put on about 15 pounds of muscle. So a lot of those balls that were warning track shots last year will be leaving Duty Noble Field this year. And I think that he is a guy that will eventually kind of become the face of this program. I think that's the guy that'll be on the media guide here in a couple of years, and that's the guy all the kids will want autographs and pictures with post-ball game. But I really expect him to take a jump. And then people tell me in the outfield, Brandon Pimentel is kind of the X factor. You know what you've got with Rowdy. You know what you've got with Tanner Allen. And Tanner Allen's not a natural outfielder, but having another full year to kind of embrace that position change has been productive for him. But if Pimentel can come in, hold down that left field spot, and add a little more power into the order, I think you really feel good about the fact that you're not going to have a lot of empty outs in your order 1 through 9.
All right, let's go back to MSU football recruiting. You don't expect any official visits in December, do you?
No, I don't. As a matter of fact, the NCAA has even talked about, pushing this dead period basically throughout the full academic school year. And so that was the big discussion before is, okay, do we keep doing this month to month? Well, last month they decided, okay, we're going to go ahead and extend the prohibition on in-person recruiting through December. And then there's talk last week that they made us go ahead and do it through March. And then I was told over the weekend, good chance, just, for the matter of equality or whatever, between sports, is just not have any official visits this entire academic year, in person, off-campus visits, and all the in-home stuff.
It's incredible.
We cover. I mean, and that's the thing too. There's so many of these kids that are making decisions with less information than their predecessors have had for probably 25 years. I think it's gonna load up the transfer portal here in the next 2 years.
Interesting. Kids who are just regular students are visiting college campuses left and right, but maybe no officials until, like you said, June, July, or those aren't really. I guess till camp season, quote unquote. I know those aren't officials, but in other words, you may not see prospects get back on campus until the summer camp circuit, right?
Right, and that's kind of an unintended consequence is all this, is when you begin to look at the fact that they're extending the prohibition through the spring, that rules out your junior days. So now you don't even get a jump on the next class because all these guys that you've been talking to and direct messaging here for the last few weeks, it's going to be summer at the earliest, more than likely, before you can, legally get them on campus. I mean, yeah, you're right. There's nothing to stop a guy and his parents from getting in the car and driving up here and looking around, getting a kind of a feel for the town, but you don't get any face-to-face with the coaches. And so you're kind of coming on your own and kind of seeing the world through the regular student lens. But, yeah, I mean, it's not just this class that's going to be affected. And I think because of the fact you don't have those junior days, probably going to have probably a bit of a delay in those early commitments. You always see those junior day commitments and guys that are in-state guys that are excited about your program. But I think we could see that kind of a ripple down effect there, that you don't have the early commitments next year. And maybe that's a good thing.
Well, and so what's going to happen is the unofficial visits are going to become the big thing. But what you're telling me is if they go up just on their own with a friend or with their parents, they're not allowed to go talk to the coaches, Steve?
That's correct. They can't take any tours of any kind that are unavailable to the general public. And so you can't go tour the facilities. You can't go sit down across the desk for the head coach or your potential position coach. You can't do it. And, some people have tried to kind of find a workaround and say, well, hey, maybe we can Zoom with the kids while they're on campus. And I'm told that's a no-no too. I mean, the bottom line is they're trying to prevent kids and their families from getting on campus and potentially getting infected or bringing infection with them. And so they're just putting a prohibition on that until this thing is somewhat, resolved.
I got about a minute. Back to baseball from a listener. Steve, can Cade Smith crack the weekend rotation?
I think he is probably a good candidate to do so, and that's another guy where state benefits from that abbreviated draft, because I have no doubt that he would have been drafted in a full draft. But, I think he has the real potential to do that. And if nothing else, I think that he's a guy that could be a middle reliever for you. But I think ultimately, when you begin to look at the long-term plan, you want Cade Smith to kind of transition into a weekend guy. And then what is Brandon Smith? What does he mean kind of moving forward? He was a guy they were expected to throw big innings and had to have Tommy John surgery. And now he's back. They've been careful with him in the fall. But, yeah, there's some guys out there with some real arm talent that are going to really compete, throw big innings for Mississippi State, and Cade Smith's certainly one of them.
Book signing today?
Oh, absolutely. I'll be at the Winston County Rotary Club thing from 11:30 to 1, and then tomorrow I'll be in Jackson, Mississippi from 4 to 7 at Capitol Grill.
There you go. Steve Robertson, Alpha Dogs is out. And the Boneyard Podcast, genespage.com, joining us on the Miller Lite guest line. Thanks, Steve. Take care.
We'll see you.
All right. I thought we knocked out some good stuff there. You notice I didn't hit basketball. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, WRKS, is always brought to you by the char-broiled oyster, seafood gumbo, and, of course, fried catfish po' boy, among many other things, at Drago Seafood Restaurant and Oyster Bar. And, yes, they have a Beta beer and Miller Lite and Coors Light. So enjoy a beer and some oysters this afternoon. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Got to tell you about a special guest joining us at 9:30 today.